Hey guys, TeamFightTonka here. I'm a current Masters player, and this is episode 2 in my How It Works series, where we try to do a thorough and hopefully quick breakdown of an item. Today we're going to look at what I assume to be the most built item in the game right now, and that is Quicksilver Sash. Before we get started, please like and subscribe, and if you like this kind of content, and me, then you can catch me on Twitch at the link above my face throughout the week. Anyways, let's get to it. What a quality title card. Okay, so before we dive into specifics, let's actually look at the item itself. So QSS is made up of a cloak and a crick glove. The effect on it, which is what makes it so important, is that the wearer is immune to crowd control effects for the first 10 seconds of combat. So something to note about this, the wording of it, is that if you slam this item before the 10 seconds is up, then you'll still gain CC immunity until 10 total seconds have passed. So for example, if you slam this item at 5 seconds into the match, then you still have 5 more seconds of immunity from CC. But let's say you slam it like 15, 20 seconds into the match, this only gives the base stats. You won't have any immunity. So people usually don't slam this item in the middle of a match, but if you do decide to do it, try to do it in the first 10 seconds so that you actually get the effect from it. Yeah, while this item is definitely unique, you can still put a Trap Claw on it. But it should be noted that Trap Claw still takes priorities of spells, making it like such an awful pairing. So what this means is that the 10 seconds is still going by on your QSS, and let's say Vagar shoots an ult at you, it's still going to absorb your Trap Claw. It's a genuinely bad combination of items. I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so let's start to dive into some nuances of the item itself. So first thing you should know is that unlike a lot of items in the game, this is a notoriously bad early game slam item. Since there's so few units on the board doing damage, there's far less spells going off. What a lot of people don't take into account is that as soon as you have 6+ units on the board, really, that's when people start to get hit more, which is generating more mana, which is sort of what's causing a chain reaction of spells going off. So if you slam this item at level 3 and you're against another level 3 user, there's so few meaningful spells at that point in the game to begin with. It's just not worth it. It's almost always better to save your cloak and slam something else like an ice cream cone or whatever you're looking for. But I would never open with a QSS out of a 3-item start. Now that said, this is definitely one of the best items in the game, but you should try to wait until most of the lobby is level 6+ so that you're sitting around that area where there are 12 total units on the board, everyone's sort of attacking each other, and there are actually spells to block. Sitting on 2 components for that long is fairly greedy. So like I said, if you can slam a better item like a chalice or some sort of offensive item with the glove, it's probably better to do that and just look for the pieces again later. So now let's break down what actually counts as CC. So it's any single type of negative effect on direct champion stats seems to count as CC. So this includes the common things like stuns and other hard CC, but it also affects things like Frozen Heart, slows, adept trait, that's the attack speed slow, taunts, and of course Zephyr. So what I mean by taunts is that if Shen ults you, that unit in the first 10 seconds, they will not switch their aggro. This also works for ZZ Rots. So if you find yourself running an assassin comp into, let's say, some sharpshooter comp that's running ZZ Rots, it's important to note that putting a QSS on your key assassin will make sure that it ignores the ZZ Rot minion. So you still have the 50-50 shot of what enemy it's going to target, but you can more easily guarantee you're going to attack the carry, which is what you want to do with assassins. The other thing to note is that if you get hit by someone who has a Luden's Echo, it won't get double procced. So what happens is if you get hit by the Nami bubble and you're wearing QSS, you'll only get hit by 1 proc of the Luden's Echo because you're not actually getting CC'd. So it's a little bit of a bonus to that, may let you survive a little early. One thing to note is that mana locks do not count as CC. So Silas Spell and Shroud of Stillness will still lock out half your mana pool. There's no way around this. You just have to position. Okay, let's go over when you want to build this item. So again, one of the best items in the game. 90% of the time, you're probably going to want to build this item if you have the components for it. But let's go over some key scenarios. So when you're playing cornered carries into comps that run Aatrox, for example, no matter how strong you think you are, there is an insanely high chance that Aatrox gets to ult at least one time. If he's 2-star, you have to expect he's going to ult once. So if you don't want your carry getting pulled, like in this example here, the difference between me winning and losing a round is whether Ashe gets pulled to the center or whether she gets to stay out in this corner. So you have to think of it like that. Yes, it's sacrificing some DPS, but at the same time, there is no DPS if she gets pulled, slammed, and then stunned by Sejuani, because Aatrox and Sedge usually getting played together. And then depending on the positioning, so if they put a Sejuani, generally Sedge is played in the middle, but in the chance that you're in the top 4 and they know they're going to face you, if they play Sedge up along this side here, that means that her ult can hit this corner. So QSS still a very good item against Sedge too. Yeah. Okay, second scenario, slightly different. Let's say you're running into a board against Dusk. QSS really strong against countering the Cassiopeia and Lilia ults. And again, Dusk also runs Aatrox, sometimes Sedge, so there is CC there. So in this scenario, you are not running a cornered unit. You didn't get that RFC on your Callista, so realistically, she has to play on the third row to actually do anything. So this means that she is in range of those ults. So the difference between this is if there is a Cassiopeia that's just sort of, where's Cass? If she's sitting over here in front of this Yasuo, that means that she can ult, she can hit that Callista, and that is the difference between Callista getting to pop off and get all those spears in people or being stunned and probably killed instantly. Do listen to Dust, not really a great combo anyway, but just for this example, with a QSS in this position, she doesn't have to get stunned. Something that you should note with Cassiopeia as a champion is that regardless of whether or not Cass applies the her stun, it still has the effect of increasing damage from her teammates. So if your only worry is the increased damage, it's probably not worth it to build the QSS in that scenario. You're still going to get one tapped. So QSS does not protect you from the passive effect of Cassiopeia ult, increasing everyone's damage against that unit. Let's see. And the other thing that you should note is when you're playing against sharpshooters, which if you've played this meta at all, you know that there are lots of sharpshooter players. It will protect you from the Aatrox, the Sedge, the Jinx, the Teemo. There's a lot of CC in that build. It can also block in a zero ult, but generally he doesn't seem to ult in the first 10 seconds, or he's not going to ult the unit who has your QSS in that time. So yes, it can block it. It probably won't. I will say, though, that against sharpshooters, if you have the type of comp where, let's say you have a super stacked Ashe or maybe an Ahri or something like that, you may actually want to respond with a Trap Claw to lock out the Jinx if she doesn't have a QSS as well. So basically what happens is Jinx will trigger the Trap Claw, and then as long as she doesn't have stun immunity, she's out of combat for the next 4 seconds, I believe, is what Trap Claw does. So there are techs where Trap Claw might actually be better for you than QSS. I would say it's probably like a 7-3 split out of 10 games where you'd build Trap Claw, or where you would 7 games you would build QSS, 3 games you might build Trap Claw. Yeah, in the very unlikely scenario that none of the comps that we just talked about are in play, It may actually be worth thinking about building a trap claw instead. Very unlikely. I don't think that's going to happen. And just because duelists were already on my board, let's go over this last scenario where if you are running a melee unit as your carry, it is almost always going to need a QSS as your defensive item. Realistically, if you have the components to slam a QSS, this should be a zero exception rule if you have those extra items for it. So you make sure you've got your core, but you should almost always consider this item a core for it. Like QSS on a melee frontline is as important as a QSS on Katarina. You should consider them non-existent without that QSS because there's so much CC flying around late game that yes, you may be able to get top 4 not running that QSS on your Yasuo 3-star or whatever. But when you get to the end of the game, if they can just lock down your key unit without really trying or doing anything, you're not gonna win. You can also run QSS on units with key alts that have a bit of ramp up time. So for example, running QSS on Lee Sin is probably going to guarantee that he gets to kick out at least one unit. So by ramp up time, I know that Lee Sin's mana pool is low, but it takes him at least 2 kicks to kick someone out of the map. In that time, he might be CC'd by someone else, whether there's like a Nami or a Lilia, something like that, that's just sort of floating around. If you put the QSS on him and you position him properly where you're kicking him to the open field, you can guarantee that Lee Sin's going to kick someone out of the map. So other key units that QSS works on is Zillion, so you can guarantee his ult. Lilia, so you can guarantee her ult. Sejuani or Aatrox, if you already have a QSS on your backline carry. They can all be really successful techs, just slamming an extra QSS if you have the items. The key idea, though, is you don't want to deny yourself other core items to your comp just to put an extra QSS out there. Like, it's a great item, but after those first 10 seconds are gone, it is just raw stats, which most other items do something else. Okay, and that is all I have for you guys. We tried to keep this one brief. QSS is a fairly self-explanatory item, but it is good to keep in mind some of the things I noted about comps and sort of what you're looking to do with the item and when you want to play it. If you guys have suggestions for the next video, please let me know in the comments down below. I will be looking to do a Morellonomicon and or a Ludens breakdown later this week, so get ready for those. Anyways, thanks for watching and good luck on the climb.